You have probably hit this exact shot that you're watching right now hundreds of times and haven't thought much of it. But what you don't know is that you just set yourself up for a perfect Ernie opportunity. So in this video, let's talk about setup shots and how they can help you win more points. Let's open the playbook. So the first shot that we're going to be breaking down how we set up for it is the Ernie. Okay, so for those of you that don't know what an Ernie has three different types. Okay, so the first one is that you can jump and hit the ball out of the air, and then you're establishing outside the kitchen. We're jumping over this gray space, which is the kitchen. I can't step into it and hit the ball. So that's why we have to jump over it to the side of the court. So now that I'm outside the actual playing surface, I'm good. I can step on this line right here, this sideline, but I can't step on this sideline because it's inside the kitchen. I also can't step on this line because it's a part of the kitchen. So my Ernie, I'm jumping over it, hitting the ball out of the air. That's Ernie number one. Ernie number two is that you can jump, wait, you're established, and then you hit. You can just chill over here if you want. Keep in mind you're going to be leaving the court open quite a bit by doing that, but in certain circumstances it makes sense to do. And then the third one is you can actually step through and do something called reestablishing, where I just reestablish outside the kitchen and then I hit my Ernie. So you're totally fine to stand on this line, stand inside, do whatever you want. You just can't hit the ball out of the air while you're in here. The ball bounces, you're good. That's why you can go step, reestablish, and hit. Both feet are outside, so I'm able to do that. So those are the three different kinds of Ernies. So hopefully, for those of you that didn't know what an Ernie is, now you know. And there's actually a few ways to set up for an Ernie. The first, and probably most common, is when you're dinking with your opponents and you or they pull you way out wide, okay? So for this instance, I'm gonna be acting as if I am your opponent and you've pulled me out wide and hit the ball behind me. Whenever we hit the ball behind our opponents, they're going to close their body away from the net. Whenever we notice that our opponent's body and head are closed away from the net, they only really have one option that they can get in consistently, and that's going to be to hit the ball up the line, because it's going to be pretty difficult for them to try to hit that ball back cross court. So Ernie opportunity number one is going to be your shot that you hit behind your opponent. So if we're in a cross court dink battle and I'm dinking cross court to you, you're dinking back cross court to me, and then you pull me way out wide here, and it's not so far out wide that I have an ATP opportunity, but it's just far enough out wide that I have now closed my leg over and I'm now facing either the side wall or the side fence. I have to now hit that ball up the line. Okay, I can't really get it back cross court. So you instantly need to recognize that and jump the line. So that's setup shot number one for an Ernie. Another great setup shot is very similar, but it's actually gonna happen from the baseline. It's gonna happen when that player, so we'll take it for instance that player over there served the ball, I return, I run forward, and now they have a third shot drop opportunity. Okay, so typically I return to them, I'm gonna be hovering over the middle of the court here. They now hit their drop out wide. That gives me a great opportunity to Ernie the ball if it's slightly high. So I'm looking, first of all, if that drop is slightly high, I'm going to jump and hit it. If they end up hitting a really good low drop, it's going to be a lot harder to Ernie the ball, and I wouldn't recommend it. What's going to happen is you're going to pull this player out wide. So this player gets pulled out wide, he's going to close his shoulder, or she is going to close her shoulder, and then you want to jump this sideline. Either your partner or you can run all the way over from there and do what's called a Bert, okay, Bert and Ernie. And you can jump over the kitchen line there. So you're setting yourself up by hitting this dink out wide, but remember, high risk, high reward, because if this is slightly high, it gives them a great Ernie opportunity to jump over the line and hit a smash. Okay, so those are the first two, and the second one obviously has two nuances to it. Either this person can Ernie or this person can set themselves up. The third is when you're in a cross-court dink battle with your opponent. So I'm cross-court dinking, and I see that they leave one slightly high here. It's gonna make a lot of sense to jump the line and take that ball earlier and put it on my opponent quicker. Typically, you want to put it on this opponent directly in front of you because they have less reaction time than the opponent does that's over here. So since we're so much closer to each other, they have less reaction time. I jump and I put the ball on them quick. They're not going to be able to react to that ball. As you advance levels, you'll be able to place your Ernies a little bit better. And in fact, in a recent tournament, can't think of her first name, but Pisnik is her last name, super good player. She jumps the line to Ernie, and she actually ends up hitting an angle way over there for a winner. So you can go in different positions, but what I would recommend when starting out, go for the easiest position, put it on your opponent as quickly as possible, and put that ball down the line. So those are the 3 setup shots for an Ernie. So look out for those, because all that it comes down to with an Ernie is recognizing when to jump. And if you can recognize these opportunities, you're going to have a lot more Ernie opportunities, and you're going to be able to finish the point a lot more often. By the way, the sponsor of this video is Titan. If you want to get $100 off the best ball machine on market, you can click this link right here, or there's also a link in the description to get that $100 off. It's super easy and convenient to use because it has tons of already built-in drills that hundreds of people have already done that you can then get on and work on your drops, drives, volleys, anything, any shot, you name it. And the coolest part about it is that it can shoot you balls in any location, one ball after the other. So it's not just giving you the same dead feed over and over and over again. So again, if you want to get $100 off your Titan ball machine, click the link at the top of the description of this video. So the next shot to talk about is the ATP, or around the post. And for those of you that don't know what that means, it's where your opponents will hit you a ball that bounces way out wide, like this. And then you're hitting that ball around the post, and you're not going over the actual net. Okay, so you hit it around the post. Typically it ends up in a winner, but a lot of people can defend it too, so you gotta be ready for it to come back. But when this opportunity presents itself, you have to be ready to actually hit that shot. And the way that you can recognize it best is actually going to come from watching your opponent. So how do we recognize this ATP, or around the net post opportunity? Typically it's going to happen when your opponent that's across from you here, so where you guys are standing in conjunction with me, it's going to be that opponent that sets you up for this around the net post shot. It's not typically going to be this opponent here, because if you hit your dink up the line, they don't have a big enough angle to work with to hit this shot way out wide for you to then ATP the shot. It can happen, but it's pretty rare because you'd have to be hitting it pretty close to the middle for them to get that angle. So take note that it's going to come from being in a cross-court dink battle with your opponent. It's going to come from that opponent that's across from you. Okay, so now that we know that, we're then going to look for the narrowness of the dink as well as the total depth towards the sideline of the dink. The further in we come, the greater ATP opportunity. The further out the ball comes, the less opportunity that we're going to have for an ATP. So if they hit it inside the kitchen, first of all, second of all, the total depth is closest to this sideline, then we know that that ATP is coming, and then it comes down to executing on it. Whereas if they hit it deep and it lands somewhere over here or even here, and it's close to the sideline, I still have an opportunity. If it's not close to the sideline, I don't have an opportunity. The further back I go, the less opportunity that I have, even if it is close to that sideline. So if it's narrow, if it's inside the kitchen, and it's close to the sideline, I want to get in front of the ball as best as I can, recognize, 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 and then I'm going to wait until the very last second where that ball is about to bounce back on the ground. Way out here, it's about to bounce on the ground again, and then I'm hitting that shot around the net post. Great thing about this is it can be an absolute laser beam because you don't have to hit it over the net. You don't have to hit up on the ball. Okay, now let's talk about the last setup shot for this video. And what that's going to be is the offensive lob. By the way, if you want to see a part 2 of this, let me know in the comments below. Helps out the channel a ton, and also it helps me to know that you guys enjoy this kind of content. So the offensive lob is very overlooked, but you can't go watch a pro match and not see multiple offensive lobs that take their opponents from an offensive position to a defensive position to then losing the point. It happens time and time and time again. And it's such an effective shot, but it's very overlooked. People think of lob as, you know, you're in defense. But lob is also an offensive shot, and it's becoming more and more offensive as pickleball continues to go on. So how do we recognize an offensive lob opportunity so that we can take our opponents from offense, where they're up at the kitchen line, to then defense, where we make them run back and try to scramble to get back into the point as we're hitting overheads? The very best way to do that is to take the ball out of the air. The reason that we want to take the ball out of the air is, let's say that we're in a dinking battle. All of our opponents are on the kitchen line. I take the ball out of the air, I'm going to be taking more time away from my opponents. I'm going to be able to get the ball on their side of the court quicker than if I allow that ball to bounce. You can also short hop the ball, which is essentially the ball bounces, but we don't let it reach its apex. We take it right off of the bounce. So essentially ball bounces right off the bounce, and I'm hitting it just instantly. Hit. That's gonna take time away from our opponents, but not as much time as if we take that ball out of the air. So let's say that I am in a cross-court dink battle with my opponent. I'm hovering over the middle because it's gonna be my job to cover any middle speed up since the ball is on that side of the court. I have to follow the ball. So because of that, I'm reaching in every single time, trying to take that ball out of the air. Now that doesn't mean that every single opportunity that I get to take a ball out of the air, I'm gonna lob the ball up, because then I'm gonna become very predictable. It's gonna come down to us changing things up every once in a while. So this is definitely a change-up shot. So I've now hit a couple of dinks out of the air maybe, and then this one I'm just gonna sneak over my opponent's head. You can go over either opponent's head, but you have more court to work with if you go to the opponent that's across from you here. If you go to the opponent up the line, you don't have nearly as much court to work with, and you're probably gonna hit that ball long or undercompensate, and they're gonna end up hitting an overhead on the shot. Whenever you get into a dink battle, everybody's looking to hover over the kitchen and attack the ball. So this is great news for us as the lobber, because since they're hovering over the kitchen, you then lob it, they're late getting back to that ball. So now they're all in defense, we're here hitting overheads. So that's gonna be a great opportunity, is when we can get that ball out of the air and hit it over our opponents. That's definitely the best opportunity. There are other ones, but all that it's gonna come down to is making sure that both of our opponents are up on the kitchen and we're watching them to see if they're hovering over the kitchen. If they're ever leaning in, lob the ball. Okay, so it doesn't have to be taken out of the air or anything like that. You could be running out wide to get to a ball, and you lob it over them. The time when they're gonna be leaning over the kitchen the most is going to be when the ball actually hits the net or clips the net and comes short into the kitchen. So they hit a shot, it clips the net, lands short, they're gonna be leaning in, okay? Ready to attack the ball at any opportunity. So then, if you can lob that shot up, they're gonna be very late getting back to it, and now you've just turned your defense into offense. All right, that is it for this video. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a thumbs up below. It really helps the channel. And if you tend to lose points because you keep speeding the ball up at the wrong time, watch this video right here. It goes into depth on when to dink versus when to speed up. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you on the next one.